Hey, you guys, if you're with me, hi. How I specifically about holistic wellness as really an approach to preventing chronic disease that is plaguing many different Americans. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of talk about that as a topic and then invite you all to reflect on it with me. So I'm wearing my new Littman stethoscope. I thought it would be fun to use it as a thumbnail. So I'm just going to see who will join me, and we'll take it from there. Hi, how are you? So more specifically, I've been very inspired lately by reflections on lifestyle medicine and nutrition, more generally speaking. So you think about the way you're actually living your life specifically, and if you break it down, you'll notice that you've got different little habits, and those habits are what will predict whether or not you will end up living well or not living well. Being able to have a really strong, fortified, immune system, as an example. So when I when I really think about health, I actually start from a very spiritual perspective. I don't look at health through the lens of a scientist as much as I look at it through the lens of someone who understands a priori. So I act on the presupposition that I'm dealing with a spiritual being, not a purely physical being. Of course, the physical and the spiritual intermingle in a non dualistic but a holistic way. I think when the mind and the body are working together as, as a holistic sort of unit, that's when we flourish. And then, interestingly, the thing that I love talking about and I bring up over and over again in my YouTube videos is the importance of your relatedness, how you are personally relating to your neighbor, your friends, your family, to other people. So I look at the psychosocial aspect of, well, contributing to well-being. And I like to think about the positive psychology associated with, who flourishes and who doesn't flourish. So, in this video, I thought I'd break that down and think a little bit about that and, see who can join me to reflect on it. So probably the first component of that process would be looking at how you actually relate to your body. Hey, how are you doing? I think that with psychiatric issues, what you see ultimately is a disconnection from the mind and the body. And then, in effect, a disconnection from neighbors, from relationships, from the possibility of even communing in a healthy way with your neighbor and your loved ones. So, in some sense, in order to, I think, really have an authentic relationship with anyone, you have to have a really good relationship with yourself. And I say that in a very reluctant way. When I say relationship to yourself, I want to be clear about what that means. It means being able to acknowledge your emotional life, really, and the subsequent responses that your emotional life produce in your body. So ultimately, it's an awareness of the body, right? And it sounds crazy, but I think a lot of people, due to lifestyle factors and cultural factors, they implicitly, so they're not consciously thinking this, well, they get all these signals that they aren't their body, and that their body isn't necessarily important or really sacred. But I think if we start with a real respect for the body, the mind follows in suit. And obviously, there are different cultural factors that contribute to that. So yeah, just reflecting on that, it's just just a powerful thing. My primary concern in becoming a provider in psychiatry or family medicine, exactly, the body is the temple, right? So if we start with that presupposition, then ultimately would we really consume the way we do? Would we, you know, would we engage in the vices that contribute poorly to our health? I want people, though, first of all, to think more of health in light of their relationships. So I want to move away from the reductionistic model, where we're looking purely at human beings as material beings, uh, because the body has a way of healing itself when we live in a bit more of a simple way. Yeah, I know, right? Isn't it great? Um, so the mind and the body, that 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 relating process between the mind and the body is really what interests me most. And if you want to look at that scientifically, you can look at psychoendocrine immunology. So that, in my belief, is really the future of mental health care, or at least an honest mental health care. Hey, how are you, Dunya? Yeah, I mean, I think being minimalistic in the sense of understanding that your life is in your relationships and in how you relate to the natural world, to your environment. I think if you live in a minimalistic way, you're less likely, really, to place values in things that aren't going to bring you health. I think if you are ultimately materialistic or driven by, you know, you could even say, I don't know, any type of vanity, really, it'll contribute poorly to your health. Now, if we actually are engaged in healthy relationships, that's a different story. Actually, I was thinking a lot about that earlier. It seems to me that health follows in suit from people really belonging, people really being a part of the community, having a family system, you could say. And it's just it just interests me greatly that the family system is, I don't know, it's like this psycho spiritual phenomenon. It's what bounds together the health of society in some sense. Because if so you think about mental health ultimately as a product of how is this individual relating in a community? How are they truly representing themselves with their temperament? You could even say. I love thinking about that. Um, and if they're not able to find a place to belong or a place to maybe expose themselves, to make themselves vulnerable, then of course that they're going to feel anxious. Of course they're going to be less hopeful and things like that. So I guess I could talk about a few different things. Let's see. I think food is very important. So not only what you eat, which is hugely important, but how you eat, how you feel when you eat, who you're with when you eat. When you eat, it's the autonomic nervous system that is ultimately contributing to healthy digestion and nutrient absorption and things like that. I'm not a doctor. I am pursuing graduate education in nursing, um, but I'm specifically interested in bridging Western medicine with more of a spiritual way of approaching the body and the mind. Has he really? That's cool. Yeah, Damon would be fun. Damon is a very um, the eights. He's a type eight, I believe, ENTJ, and there's something to an eight that just wants to make things happen. force change in some sense. Very powerful energy. So I have a lot of respect for that. So yeah, when it comes to diet, I'm very interested in the way people are relating to their diet. It seems to me that oftentimes people are marketed different fad diets and they become, you could say, obsessive over the fact that, well, I can trust in this authority figure, I can trust in this marketing ploy. And because of that trust, they begin to, well, be a little healthier because they're actually starting to believe again that they have some kind of control, right, over their health. I think more often than not, diet is is a very simple process. I think people complicate things. They want to try to really understand what is right or what is wrong, and they kind of compulsively look at it that way. And it's just not a good strategy. Yeah, absolutely. I think we need to eat and we need to live in more traditional ways, right? Um, so what that would mean is that our access to animal-based foods would be limited, and our access to whole foods would be more available. Right, right. You're right. So sugar wasn't easily accessible to our ancestors, right? It would make sense that if we, specifically the artificial sugars like high fructose, I mean, those things, our body isn't able to process that type of sugar as a good source of energy. So I look at health in terms of energy in a big way. And food is energy. So what is a good source of energy really? A good source of energy is what supports your a healthy metabolic rate and a healthy gut. So your diet should ultimately be supporting your gut microbiome. That's where your diet should really be. There should be a relationship between you and the food you eat as well that is psychological and then based in a respect for how your gut is connected to your brain. Um, so supporting a healthy gut is the first step, I think, to a healthy life. And obviously, emotional issues surrounding eating need to be addressed. So, yeah, we just need to change the way we look at food from a psychological point of view. And then on a very physical level, start looking at um, having more of a balanced diet. So really just less animal-based foods and more really healthy uh, fats from vegetable sources, not from animal sources. That seems to be what I believe to be right. And then also looking at different ways to introduce different polyphenols into your diet. So different kinds of teas, different kinds of herbs, traditional herbs. I mean, like we in my house we cook with garlic and olive oil, and we add turmeric to things. We just kind of we do a lot of healthy fats, and then try to minimize the the animal based fats in our diet. I think that's the kicker. That's the real strategy to a healthy heart. And I also like to think of the heart as the center of life. You could talk about the spiritual life being an important component of living a healthy life. And I would say, well, of course it is, because the heart, right, is the spiritual center. And the heart and the mind are really one thing. So when we think negative thoughts and we hold grudges and are hurtful and contemptuous and ashamed of ourselves, well, that puts a lot of stress on our heart, right? Specifically anger. If you're someone who's very aggressive, that makes your heart work really hard. And your heart doesn't need to be working that hard. So yeah, that's kind of what I understand about nutrition more generally. And I start with the psychological relationship that you have. Meditation is a practice of paying attention in a calm way, in a non-judgmental way. I think meditation is very, very good for us, but I also think that we need to move away from being able to use a philosophical and a rational system to be healthy. We need to have an understanding of, well, what does meditation look like? But it's important for us not to be focused wholly on the practice of meditation. I come from a Christian background, so I think that we need to actually think about how we are really loving one another as ourselves, loving neighbor as ourselves. So I think the meditative practice needs to support loving relationships, not necessarily, producing a state of mind or focusing on the body too much. I definitely ground a lot of what I believe in spiritually in our ability to relate to one another in a healthy way. I do think it's possible for people to go down the spiritual rabbit hole where they become too caught up in techniques and rationalism and just trying to understand how to be healthy and things like that. So, yeah, loving kindness meditation is really kind of what I'm getting at, right? When I talk about love for neighbor as the self, that's what that is. It's calling to mind these types of very um, good thought, loving thoughts. And if you want to break it down scientifically, there's that idea that your vagal response, or your, I think it's the 10th cranial nerve, I'm not sure, can act in this way to promote a healthy parasympathetic response, which promotes healthy digestion, rest, feeling close to people. That's what health is, really, right? Health is how close do I feel to myself, and how close do I feel to others. I think if you break it down, the body does a really good job fighting off disease when we take take the time to really ask ourselves those questions. Yeah, definitely. It's like we have 7 people on here. I think it would be really silly for me not to mention the importance of physical movement. You know, I think uh, I think if you do everything right in terms of diet and you don't have any physical movement, you're probably quite healthy, to be honest, because diet's the most important part. But if you add physical movement, you will really be much healthier. We have legs. We have muscles that we are meant to engage. We're meant to be moving about and working with our hands. I think that I think that if you do anything, some kind of cardiovascular exercise is one of the quickest ways to ameliorate symptoms of depression or anxiety. Um, it's incredible what simply introducing an exercise routine can do for your mind and your heart. It's incredible. I think that there is a relationship to exercise too that needs to be investigated. I think we need to understand that when we do exercise, that it's something that we can do reliably, that they incorporate a habit, right? It's not about maybe building, big muscles or, protecting yourself. It's about creating a positive relationship to exercise so that you do incorporate it into your life every day. Not every once in a while, but every day, every single day. It's essential. Okay, massage, yes. So we know that physical touch actually causes the release of these feel-good hormones, these bonding hormones, and causes a vagal response or a parasympathetic response. So I think that to no surprise, when you look at healthy bonds, healthy marriages, there's more physical intimacy. There is, and they're generally healthier because of it. Timothy, what's up? Tim, thanks for joining me. Yeah, so physical touch acts as a profoundly um, pain alleviating uh, thing. If you are regularly touching, you're producing trust, right? It's impossible to be engaged with someone physically and not have these feel good trust hormones being released. And these serve to protect us. Uh, and it all cycles into the idea that our social bonds are really what protect us. So I think massage and then cultivating an awareness of the body through massage can promote hopefully different kinds of lifestyle choices. I think that's a very good strategy. Because when we start to practice in awareness of our bodies, maybe through massage, right, then we're flexing that muscle of learning how to take care of ourselves, right? Learning how to empathize with ourselves and to be compassionate to ourselves and hopefully other people, right? I think that's a really interesting idea. It's like you can't expect to just go from living these really unhealthy habits to being healthy. You've really got to focus on baby steps, and you got to be patient with yourself along the way. If you have an addictive personality, if you are addicted to certain foods, I mean, you're not going to be able to just drop them without there being a lot of psychological pain. So, that being said, we got to be really honest with ourselves. And that's where I want to come in because I think having a healing relationship, right? Having a community of people who support you, that is the way to make those changes. You would be so surprised if you relate to people who make better lifestyle choices. You're going to ultimately uh, engage in better lifestyle choices. Chief Pokiaho. Pokiaho. That's interesting. I don't use essential oils. I've heard about that. Though. I think that'd be pretty cool. It's like the way to relax. So, what do I want to talk about? So, in addition to diet and movement and the psychological relationship to these choices we make with exercise and food, I think it's also important to look at what what kind of thinking we are having. So I'm interested in the psychological aspect or attitudes that produce healthier people, happier people, you could say. And of course, I've been talking a lot about connection, and we can look at that in terms of trait agreeableness, because if you're more agreeable, well, guess what? You're interested in those social bonds. You're genuinely interested in building them. So, of course, that's going to contribute positively to your health and well being. Um, Generally speaking, emotional stability, of course, um, is going to contribute to your health and well being. So, this this interest in happiness is something that I've been interested in for a long time. What does happiness look like? What is human flourishing? So I started to investigate the research that's been done at the University of Pennsylvania, um, specifically with Martin Seligman. I made a YouTube video on this a long time ago, but I'll briefly mention the work that he's doing. So what he's essentially discovered is that your general level of positive affect, like really feeling good, is largely related to temperament, probably trait extroversion, to be honest with you. So, yeah, trait extroverts are going to have a bit of a advantage, I think, when it comes to having a healthier uh, immune system and being able to fight off diseases. Like if you're willing to approach people and you're not withdrawing, if you're willing to if you're in an approach state, you could say, if you have positive expectations, right? If you're looking forward to something in the future, um, well, your body is going to fight to make that expectation a reality, at least to experience it. So the research that's been done at UPenn has looked at happiness in like the acronym PERMA. So positive emotion is the first component of that, and that can be understood just in terms of pleasure, right? So general levels of pleasure. So some people experience more pleasure than others. A lot of us think that pleasure is happiness, but happiness is a lot more complicated because happiness also requires the second, which is engagement. So ultimately, how engaged you are in your life, right? So if you're feeling like you're in a flow state in your life, that also reflects your ultimate well-being. So you might ask yourself, goodness gracious, I spend all day not being engaged. Well, goodness, you should be. You should find ways to be engaged. And the research suggests that we actually find engagement when we are using our skills. And our skills are things that we are naturally very good at and things that have been highly practiced. So you can think to yourself, what am I good at, really? And start doing more of that because that will contribute to producing flow states of engagement in your life. Yeah. I took the UPenn skills test, and for me, my top skill was forgiveness, which I thought was pretty weird. It's like, well, that's good. That means I should be healing people, right? Cultivating maybe forgiveness in the world. I don't know how I would do that, but I think that's a good approach to life, right? So hopefully forgiveness is a big part of my personality temperament because I'm very agreeable, and because of that, it's easy for me to see how other people see the world and feel, and maybe produce room, for them to be better and believe in it, and hopefully they can believe in it too. So I think that's a big place of flow for me, is stepping into that peacemaker healing role, right? It might be different for you because we're all different. And then R is associated with your relational health. And healthy relationships are basically play like a give and take, a playful relationship. You'll notice yourself playing in healthy relationships, right? You could think about positive relationships as I feel safe with this person, safe enough to play, right? And if you are engaged in reciprocity, then you're playing. And it's a lot of fun. But you can't have reciprocity if you don't have positive interactions or trust. So you need to build trust in your life within those relationships. And that's the big secret. It's like, how can I create a sense of trust with this person? And if you have more of that going on, you're going to be healthier. You're going to be happier. More people you trust, the healthier you are. And the more reciprocity in that, the more you're going to feel positive emotion. So meaning as well is essential. So meaning is essentially, if you want to define meaning the way they do, meaning is basically, am I sharing in something bigger than myself? That's what that is. And do I actually experience that? Yeah. Falling victim to narcissistic. Sorry, I'm reading the chat. I was kind of ignoring it. I didn't actually look. You're experiencing a narcissist in a romantic relationship. I would say, I don't need to go too deep down the rabbit hole. Let me finish what I was saying. Meaning is transcending the the individual. Meaning is when you feel connected in something that is emotionally engaging. And that has a lot to do with your values, I think, at least for me. And then accomplishment. You have to have goals. You have to be moving towards something in the future if you want to experience positive emotion. The trait extroversion is associated with that, as is goal setting. People who meet goals they set out for themselves are going to be happier. Okay, so I'm done with that whole positive emotion spiel. My advice for being in a relationship with a narcissist is to throw up the boundary. You know, you've got to understand how you let that person in, first of all, and forgive yourself for doing that. You're not stupid. I mean, narcissists are brilliant. I mean, I'm not trying to justify narcissism, but we have to find forgiveness in ourselves because a lot of times I know for me as an agreeable man, getting in a relationship with someone who can't give me what I need or what I would like um, makes me feel like there's something wrong with me, you know. Um, when in fact, a lot of the times there's nothing wrong with you. That person might actually be very unhealthy, and in your case, you claim to be a narcissist. So in that case, they're doing damage to everyone, not just you. So you gotta step out of your bubble of understanding how you've been hurt and be a little bigger than that. Talk to someone who isn't a narcissist. Talk to more people to really see it as this really terrible pattern, and then understand that most people aren't. And my goodness, start to believe that you can be in a relationship where you aren't manipulated and abused, because it's believing that is going to produce, you know, healing. I think, at least that's my point of view on it. So I wanted to do this for 30 minutes. So for those of you that are here, thank you for hanging out with me. And if there's anything you want me to talk about, you can ask a question and I'll answer those questions. Just let me know if there's anything you would like me to answer. Um, a big part of what I want to do in my life is to hopefully uh, enjoy a lot of therapeutic relationships with people. That seems to be what I think is very important to me. And I see that there is a lot of therapeutic relationship within communities already. So as a healer, I'm thinking to myself, I want to go heal the world. I want to save the world. How am I going to save the world as a healer? And then you realize you don't have to save the world. You just have to build community. And community saves the world. Or at least it saves people. It saves the addict. When the addict goes to their group, it saves the addict to have people bigger than them to talk to about it. So yeah, that's my vision. Good stuff. All right, so I'm going to wait a minute and see if anyone has anything else to say, and I'll head out. And if you haven't liked the video, you should, because there's 9 people watching, and there's 5 likes. Oh wow, yeah, depression and suicide. I think that suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the modern world. Number 10. That's more than Parkinson's disease. Can you believe that? It's a big deal. And the people who do it, well, they're not poor, they're wealthy, or at least relatively well off, and they're middle aged, and they're usually white men. So you ask yourself, well, what about that cultural and socioeconomic system, that culture produces these types of things? Um, I think that depression and suicide are a response in so many ways. These are people responding to pain in their lives. They are suffering immensely and they want to suffer less. And a lot of times they're trying to reach out. And people just aren't paying attention enough. But then again, they're not asking for help. So I think suicide and depression rates represent cultural norms and beliefs in the community. It's a big deal for sure. My big concern right now is in development of mental illness because it's my view that this modern world is becoming increasingly difficult for children with less coherent cultural systems, less family systems. I don't really know how things would possibly get better. But as a hopeful person, as someone who wants to see healing for people, when I see depression and anxiety, I choose to face it and I choose not to feed it. I think you have to understand that in so many ways, our lives are what we feed them. We're feeding the fuel, we're putting the fuel to helplessness when we say, well, I can't do anything about my depression. And a lot of times it's just a failure to ask for help. It's a failure because there are people who I think can help you. It's just very hard to ask for help in our society, I think. You're very welcome, Evergreen. I'm sorry about your experience with the narcissist. I think that many people can relate to you if you talk to people about it. I think narcissism, generally speaking, is just as common as something like not bipolar illness, but probably schizophrenia. I mean, it's not uncommon. I mean, it's not common. It's 1%. Very, very few people are actually trait narcissists, but it's a big chunk of those people are doing damage. And we should see it. We should call them out. We should try to protect communities from those people. Yes, I just got a Littman 3 Classic 3. I'm pretty excited about it because I can actually listen to my heart and other people's hearts. And the heart really, really, really is a big deal with healthcare. Heart-related issues kill people, right? So you got to ask ourselves, what are we doing that's contributing to an unhealthy heart? Because if we can try to protect our heart, we can live longer. We can be healthier people. So hopefully I can maybe educate people about how to protect their hearts and their brains. All right, I'm going to give it about a minute and then I'm going to go. I think more people are joining. I have to be on here for a while to probably get a bigger group on here. But yeah, if you are watching, 11 people, that's a room full of people. That's pretty cool. Thank you. If there's anything you want to ask me, I do like the Q&As. That's probably what I should do because it felt weird just talking a lot. Unless I had like a prepared script, it'd be easier. Might as well just make a video at that point, right? Yes. So if anyone is actually wondering, yeah, I am going to nursing school in about a couple of weeks. That's why I have the stethoscope. It's required for me. Um, and the nursing model is more of a holistic model. So that excites me. That excites me as someone who's focused on disease prevention, right, and lifestyle medicine. More generally, there's more of a philosophical foundation there that aligns well with my personal beliefs. So that's kind of exciting for me. All right, you guys, this is the final fare thee well. I appreciate you watching me, and I hope you guys take care. I will probably be uploading a new video pretty soon. So I will see you guys then, hopefully. Hope you guys get a good night's sleep and take care of yourselves. Because you need to. You deserve it. Take care.